So hello, welcome to Church Wigan Live. Today I'm joined by Reverend Neil Cook, team leader for Church Wigan, and we're coming with an update for the life of the church here in Wigan. Last Sunday, many of you will have tuned in to hear the Prime Minister Boris Johnson addressing the nation. So Neil, first of all, how does the government's plan impact the life of the church here in Wigan?
Yeah, we all heard, didn't we? The Prime Minister outlined the plan to get the nation back safely on the road to recovery. The National Church of England responded quickly to this. And while church buildings remain closed for the time being, the bishops agreed to a phased approach to lifting restrictions, for church buildings and church activities in parallel with government instructions, as the risk levels change and get better, really, and infection levels drop. The first phase that the bishops talked about is the initial sort of immediate phase where we currently are at. That's the one where, like at the moment, the buildings remain closed, but some people have access, very limited access to the buildings for very specific reasons. And these will be under strict hygiene, safety conditions, and only after consultation with the hub leader and the church wardens. I know when we hear this, some of us might be thinking, great, well, this is a time I can get in and varnish the doors. I'm afraid that's not the case. No one is permitted in yet unless you have specific permission, as I say, from your church warden and from your hub leader. You need that. This is all about keeping you safe and others as well. So that's the first phase. The second phase is at some point, and as the Prime Minister pointed out, it certainly won't be before July the 4th, and it might be after that as well, that there will be certain access, for some rites and ceremonies, maybe such as weddings, and maybe ultimately some worship service as well with limited congregations. For sure, this gives us some hope. But listen, we need to be honest and realistic with each other. We haven't been told yet what the conditions are for reopening our churches, but it'll almost certainly involve capped attendances, no doubt strict requirements around hygiene, our hand washing and toilet facilities, which we know a lot of our buildings, our church buildings, are challenged by this anyway. And anyway, it probably won't be until probably the autumn. So all I can say is that Church Wigan, lay and ordained, together under the leadership of the Bishop of Liverpool, we're going to work out a safe and shared plan.
So these changes that have took place and the things that have been outlined for the coming months, do you see this as good news or bad news? How do you respond to this?
So I certainly would be mad if I tried to spin it. The truth is that, we look out of our windows and we go out now, we can see already that many have interpreted the Prime Minister's announcement to mean the lockdown's over. Things have changed already, it seems. However, the restrictions still are around. I know many of us are grieving that we can't be back in church. We can't be with our friends, we can't be receiving communion, doing the things we love. And yes, for sure, it breaks our hearts. But I think it's vital to acknowledge that God hasn't been inactive during this time. I've grown in my appreciation of a little oft overlooked verse in the 23rd Psalm, the one where it says that God prepares a feast for us in the presence of our enemies, or in the presence of those which trouble us. And, the whole world is troubled at the moment by COVID-19, yet God's been doing remarkable things. He's been laying a feast before us. I mean, we've been using the moniker prayer and care to describe the way we've been showing God's love at this time. Under prayer, it's been amazing to see how many people have been willing to join us online. on a daily basis for prayer and also weekly worship. And many more people are joining us than would have done so beforehand. In just a few weeks before Easter, we had 38,000 engagements on our Facebook site, our Church Wigan Facebook site. I'm sure this online connection will outlive the coronavirus. Yes, we have to find ways, don't we, to make sure that we reach out to those who don't use the internet, often, those who are older, but, funnily enough, younger people as well, who don't use things like platforms like Facebook. But I think we should celebrate the fact that that prayer and worship has been going on, even increasing during these times. So that's prayer, but the care aspect's amazing as well. I've been humbled by the way, telephone trees and the informal pastoral networks have been working. Everywhere people seem to be connecting by telephone, having deeper conversations than maybe what they might have done previously when they waved at each other in church. It's wonderful. I just want everybody to know that, their compassion and hard work is well appreciated and well recognized. Food ministry as well. I mean, it's been vital, not for us, but for Wigan at this time. Church Wigan has grown in the eyes of its partners, but much more importantly, we've been feeding hundreds of households every week, households that are in need. And then don't forget, we've been involved in the funeral ministry during the pandemic, offering solace at the creme and at the graveside. So, yes, these are difficult and troubling times, but let's celebrate that God has been doing amazing things, that his light has been shining through Church Wigan at this time.
That's great to hear. Really good to hear. I'm sure, though, the question that many people will be asking is, when can things go back to normal? When will things return to how they used to be?
Okay. I don't know, honestly speaking. Nobody knows. We're still in the grip of the worst pandemic for 100 years, and it's unclear how things will unfold. We do know that we're bound by the rule of law. We're led by Church of England guidance. I think it's important for us to say that we support the guidance of the Church of England, the leadership that it's putting about, saying we put the vulnerable first before our own demands for, to reopen and do the things we want. I don't know, Will, I think you might have heard, I've heard that there's been some criticism of the Church of England of us for closing our buildings. And I've been thinking about, well, first of all, it's law. We've had to close our buildings. But even more, I don't think we're showing love if we demand that we engage in a religion which and practices which put people at risk of infection. I think the way of love is the longer road, where we don't put people at risk. We don't open too early, and really we show our love by showing patience and perseverance at this time. It'll be a long road. People talk about a new normal, don't they? It will certainly, the new normal won't look like the old normal. But, we've been learning as we go along. We've been seeing how people want to interact. Many people from outside of the church have been wanting to interact with us and with God via our online offerings. We've seen how the vital public role of the church in, say, like the food ministry, we've been seeing God do new things, which give us new opportunities as we go into the future. So things will be different, but I guess I take encouragement from the words of Haggai the prophet. Haggai said that the glory of the latter temple will be greater than the glory of the former temple. And I'm trusting God that this will be the case in Church Wigan.
So finally, you said this is going to be a long road. As we set out on this journey, as we trust for the glory of the greater things to come, is there a word of encouragement? Is there something that you sense that God might be trying to say to the church at this time?
Yes, I do. And it was shared with me from a member I trust a lot and respect a lot from Church Wigan. Called me and said, I think Jesus has been talking to me about something. And she told me how the Lord had asked her this question as she'd been reflecting on the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And the Lord said to her and said, what will you do with the 12 baskets of broken pieces that are left over? And when I first heard this, I kind of thought, I don't really understand that, and sort of didn't really engage with it too much. But as the weeks have gone on, I've seen more and more clearly that actually I think these broken pieces are showing us something, that God is going to take some things that we're learning afresh during this time of lockdown, whether it be the food ministry, maybe some of our online ministry, the greater pastoral connections that we're having, different things which have been really come to the surface and become, foremost in our thinking at this time. I believe this is going to carry on into the future and will be something which defines our ministry, our good news that we bear to the people of Wigan. So I am not trying to say that this is not a difficult time, but I am saying I think there's great hope, and that what we're learning now will bear fruit in the future as well.
That's great. Brilliant. Reminder that some of the things that Neil's been mentioning, the prayer and the care, you can find all the details of that on our website. So if you go to churchwigan.org, you'll find on there the details of how to join in with daily prayer. And we have daily prayer streamed on Facebook at 9 in the morning and 9 in the evening. And then also we've got a tab on the website called Caring in COVID-19. And under that, you'll find all the details of our food ministry and our Keep Warm packs and all sorts of other things that we're doing to provide practical care and support at this time. So thank you for joining us. We're going to continue these news updates, and as we have a greater understanding of what the future looks like, and as things develop, we'll be keeping you updated. But thanks for joining us today.